Celibacy is easy, until your temptation suddenly has a face, a shy stare, and a staff badge hanging over curves you're not supposed to notice. That was the story of a billionaire hospital CEO named Graham Ellison and a janitor named Mara Delaney, the girl his mind kept trying not to play dirty scenes of. For half a decade, he lived like a monk in a glass tower, chasing God, discipline, and perfection. But the night he caught the janitor alone in his finance office at 1:54 a.m., hips tilted toward the desk, bent over a glowing screen, he realized there are some tests no spiritual book ever prepared him for. Graham Ellison woke every morning at 4:30 to the sound of silence. No alarm, no music, just a cold awareness that another day of armor needed to be strapped on before the world saw him. His penthouse overlooked the city like a watchtower. 16 floors of steel and glass stretched beneath him. Ellison Memorial Hospital, the most advanced medical complex in 3 states. 2,000 employees, 40 operating rooms, a quarterly budget that could fund a small nation. He owned it. He built it from nothing after his father's death, brick by brick, loan by loan, until the name Ellison meant excellence instead of tragedy. But ownership came with a price. Every morning, before the sun cracked the horizon, he knelt beside his bed and prayed. He asked for strength. He asked for clarity. He asked for the discipline to keep his hands clean, his mind sharp, and his body under control. 5 years ago, he made a vow. No women, no distractions, no weakness. He would live like the monks he read about in those leather-bound books stacked beside his bed. He would strip away every carnal craving until nothing remained but purpose. It worked. For 5 years, it worked. Women passed through his conference rooms and hallways like background noise. Beautiful doctors, sharp executives, confident board members in tailored suits. None of them registered. He felt nothing until 5 months ago. It happened during a Monday morning staff meeting, the kind of gathering where department heads lined the front rows and support staff filled the back. Graham stood at the podium, reviewing quarterly metrics, his voice steady and commanding. But before he spoke, he did what he always did. He scanned the room. His eyes swept across faces, counting attendance, noting posture, reading energy. And then he saw her. Back row, far left corner. So small she almost disappeared behind the man in front of her. A janitor, petite frame, dark hair pulled into a practical ponytail, staff badge clipped to a polo shirt that hung loose over her shoulders. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed somewhere near the floor. She wasn't trying to be noticed, but Graham noticed. His throat tightened. His prepared speech vanished from his mind for 3 full seconds. He forced his gaze away, cleared his throat, and began talking about patient satisfaction scores. But every few sentences, his eyes drifted back. She never looked up. The following Monday, he searched for her again. 3rd row this time. Same posture. Same quiet invisibility. He told himself it meant nothing. The Monday after that, she sat near the door as if planning an escape. He caught himself staring so long that his CFO, Thatcher Lowell, had to repeat a question twice. By the 4th Monday, Graham stopped pretending. He arrived early to staff meetings just to watch her walk in. He noted the way she moved, careful, economical, like someone who had learned not to take up space. She carried a worn notebook, though she never wrote in it. She never raised her hand. She never spoke. But something about her presence grounded the entire room. He started having conversations with himself. Heated, furious, internal arguments. She's staff. She's a janitor. You're her employer. This is inappropriate. You're on a spiritual journey. You made a vow. You're supposed to be above this. Forget her. Erase her. She doesn't exist. But every Monday, there she was. And every Monday, His armor cracked a little more. He began to hate Mondays, not because of the meetings, because of how badly he wanted them. Mara Delaney finished her shift at 6 in the morning, peeled off her gloves, and walked 3 blocks to the bus stop with aching feet and a paycheck that barely covered rent. She used to have a different life. For years ago, she worked as a data entry clerk for a mid-sized insurance company. The pay wasn't great, but it was stable. She had health benefits. She had a desk. She had a future. Then her mother got sick. Cancer moved fast. The bills moved faster. Mara burned through her savings in 6 months. She picked up a second job, then a third. She sold her car. She moved into a cheaper apartment. She stopped sleeping. Her mother died on a Tuesday. Mara lost her job on a Thursday. The insurance company didn't fire her outright. They just made it clear she had missed too many shifts, taken too many personal days, and her performance had slipped. They offered her a severance package and a handshake. She took the money and disappeared. For 2 years, she worked anywhere that would hire her. Retail, waitressing, cleaning offices at night. Eventually, she landed at Ellison Memorial. Night shift, janitorial services, $8 above minimum wage, which felt like a fortune. She mopped floors beneath surgical robots worth more than her entire life. She emptied trash cans in offices where people made decisions that shaped thousands of lives. She cleaned glass walls that stretched toward ceilings she would never touch. And every Monday, she sat in the back of those staff meetings, trying to be invisible. She knew who Graham Ellison was. Everyone knew. The billionaire who rebuilt his father's failing hospital into a national powerhouse. The man who never smiled, never wavered, never seemed to need anyone. She also knew he stared at her. She felt it every time. His gaze landed on her like a weight she couldn't shake. It made her skin warm and her stomach twist. She told herself she imagined it. Men like him didn't notice women like her. But every Monday, she felt again. So she stopped looking up. She focused on the floor, the wall, the notebook she never opened. She convinced herself it didn't mean anything. By late autumn, the hospital faced its worst crisis in years. A federal audit loomed. The board demanded answers. Investors circled like vultures. Whispers of financial irregularities spread through the executive floors like wildfire. Graham worked 16-hour days, reviewing every transaction, every invoice, every report. His finance team assured him the books were clean. His CFO swore on his career that nothing was out of place. But Graham couldn't shake the dread. Something felt wrong. He walked the hospital at night, moving through empty corridors like a ghost. He stood in operating rooms after surgeries ended, staring at equipment that hummed softly in the dark. He visited the chapel and sat in silence, praying for clarity. He thought about his father, how the man built something beautiful and then lost it to poor decisions and worse advisors. Graham swore he would never repeat those mistakes. But the audit was coming, and somewhere in the back of his mind, beneath the worry and the pressure and the endless spreadsheets, he kept thinking about the girl with the shy stare and the mop, the one distraction he couldn't pray away, the one temptation he couldn't forget. At 1:54 a.m. on a Thursday, Mara pushed her cleaning cart past the ICU, half asleep on her feet. Her walkie-talkie crackled. "Mara, you copy?" She pressed a button. "Yeah, go ahead. We got a situation on the 5th floor. Finance wing. Nurses are complaining about a smell. Probably a dead rat in the walls. Can you check it out before morning shift arrives?" Mara grimaced. "On my way." She hated the 5th floor. Too quiet. Too many locked doors. Too much money passing through too few hands. But she grabbed her flashlight, adjusted her gloves, and headed for the elevator. The finance wing sprawled across the eastern side of the building, a maze of cubicles, glass-walled offices, and server rooms that hummed like living things. During the day, it buzzed with analysts and accountants. At night, it sat empty and cold. Mara stepped into the corridor and sniffed. Nothing. She walked slowly, scanning the baseboards, checking corners. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating motivational posters and framed hospital milestones. She reached the end of the hall and paused. One office door stood slightly ajar. Light spilled through a crack. Mara frowned. She nudged the door open with her shoulder and stepped inside. The office belonged to someone important. She could tell by the size of the desk and the quality of the furniture. A single computer terminal glowed in the darkness, its screen filled with rows of data. No dead rat, no smell, just a forgotten terminal left running. Mara moved closer, intending to shut it down, but something on the screen caught her eye. Billing dashboard, live feed, automated transaction log. She had seen systems like this before, back when she worked data entry. Her job had been to spot errors, flag duplicates, and correct mismatched invoices. Her brain processed patterns the way other people process faces. And this pattern was wrong. The numbers moved in perfect increments. Too perfect. Too consistent. Every third transaction showed a microtransaction, a tiny percentage shaved off the total. So small it would never trigger an alert. But it repeated, again, and again, and again. Mara's pulse quickened. She pulled out the chair and sat down. Don't touch it. You'll get fired. This isn't your job. But her hands were already on the keyboard. She pulled up the transaction history. 5 months of data scrolled past. The skimming pattern went back to early spring. Millions of dollars, routed into a secondary account, then funneled offshore. Mara's stomach dropped. Someone was stealing from the hospital, and they had hidden it inside the billing automation, disguised as rounding errors and processing fees. She dug deeper. The trail pointed back to a single set of credentials. CEO-level access. Graham Ellison's login. Mara's hand started shaking. This wasn't just theft. This was a frame. Someone was setting him up. She ran the trace again, checking timestamps, comparing device signatures. The pattern was too clean, too deliberate. The thief had used the credentials, but the activity came from a different terminal. She cross-referenced the deployment logs. The malicious code had been planted weeks before the audit announcement. Whoever did this knew the audit was coming. They wanted Graham to take the fall. Mara sat back, her mind racing. If she reported this, they might not believe her. A janitor accusing someone in finance of fraud? They would assume she misunderstood the data. Or worse, they would assume she was involved. If she said nothing, a good man would be destroyed. She had come looking for a dead rat. She found something far worse. Mara leaned forward again, fingers flying across the keyboard. She needed more proof. Concrete evidence. Something undeniable. The server logs loaded slowly. She held her breath, and then she heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, coming closer. Mara froze. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. Graham couldn't sleep. The audit consumed him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his father's hospital collapsing, saw investors walking away, saw his legacy reduced to a cautionary tale. At 1:30 in the morning, he gave up. He dressed in the dark, drove back to the hospital, and took the elevator to the 5th floor. He told himself he needed to review the billing reports one more time. He told himself he needed to be ready for the board meeting at dawn. But mostly he just needed a move. The finance wing sat in darkness, except for one office. Graham's jaw tightened. Someone was in his CFO's office. He walked faster, preparing to confront whoever had breached protocol. He pushed the door open and stopped breathing. Mara Delaney sat at the terminal, her small frame illuminated by the glow of the screen. Her fingers paused mid-keystroke. Every ounce of control Graham spent 5 years building shattered. Heat surged through his chest, his stomach, his veins. His skin burned. His hands clenched. His breath came shallow and fast. For 5 years, he had locked every carnal thought behind iron walls. For 5 years, he had convinced himself he was beyond temptation. Now he stood 3 feet from the only woman who had ever haunted him, alone in a dark office at 2 a.m, and every forbidden fantasy he had buried came roaring back. He saw her hips tilted toward the desk, her neck exposed under the fluorescent light, the curve of her waist beneath that oversized polo shirt, the way her lips parted slightly in concentration. His pulse hammered. His body responded in ways he had almost forgotten. He wanted to touch her. He wanted to pull her close. He wanted to break every vow he ever made. Graham forced himself to speak. "What are you doing here?" His voice came out rough. "Dangerous." Mara spun in the chair, her eyes wide with panic. "Mr. Ellison, I can explain." She thought he was angry. She thought he suspected her. If she only knew, if she knew what he was actually fighting, she would run. But instead, she stood quickly, hands raised like someone caught committing a crime. "I know this looks bad," she said, words tumbling out fast. "But I swear I wasn't snooping. They sent me to find a dead rat, and I found the terminal running, and I noticed something wrong with the billing logs, and Graham forced himself to focus, to pull his gaze away from her mouth, to stop imagining what her voice would sound like saying his name differently. "Show me." She blinked. "What?" "Show me what you found." Mara hesitated, then turned back to the screen. She pulled up the transaction logs, her fingers moving with surprising confidence. "Here," she said, pointing. "Every third invoice gets skimmed. It's small, 0.03%, but compounds. Over 5 months, someone has stolen nearly $4 million. Graham stepped closer. Too close. He could smell her shampoo. Something floral and cheap and impossibly distracting. He forced his eyes to the screen. The numbers swam for a moment before snapping into focus. She was right. The pattern was there, hidden in plain sight. "The code routes the money through a secondary account," Mara continued, her voice steadier now. "Then it funnels offshore. But the trail points back to your credentials." Graham's stomach twisted. "My credentials?" "Yes. But look." She pulled up another window. "The device signature doesn't match your usual terminal. Someone used your login from a different location. They're framing you." Graham stared at the screen, then at her. This janitor, this woman he had spent 5 months trying not to think about, had just uncovered a crime that could have destroyed him. His financial team missed it. His auditors missed it. His CFO missed it. But she found it. "How did you—" He trailed off. Mara looked down, suddenly self-conscious. "I used to do data entry. Before I ended up here. I'm good with patterns." "Good." Graham almost laughed. "You're brilliant." Her cheeks flushed. The heat in his chest intensified. He needed to move, to step back, to put distance between them. But he couldn't. Instead, he leaned over her shoulder, pointing at the screen. "Can you trace the origin point?" "I think so." They worked side by side, their shoulders almost touching. Graham's entire body hummed with awareness. Every time she shifted, every time her breath caught, every time her fingers brushed the keyboard, he felt it like a physical touch. He hadn't been this close to a woman in 5 years. He had forgotten what it felt like. Or maybe he had never felt anything like this before. Mara pulled up the deployment logs. The code was planted 6 weeks ago, right before the audit was announced. So this was planned. Yes. She scrolled through the access records. Whoever did this knows your system inside and out. They know your schedule. They know your login patterns. She stopped. Graham saw it at the same time. One name appeared repeatedly in the deployment logs. Thatcher Lowell, the CFO, Graham's closest advisor, the man he trusted with everything. Silence filled the office. Mara turned slowly to face him. I'm sorry. Graham couldn't speak. Betrayal felt like a knife between his ribs. But beneath the shock, beneath the anger, something else stirred. Gratitude. If she hadn't found this, if she hadn't followed her instincts, he would have walked into that audit blind. He would have lost everything. Thank you, he said quietly. Mara's eyes met his. For the first time, she didn't look away. And Graham realized something that terrified him more than the fraud, more than the audit, more than anything else. He would never be able to forget her again, not even if he tried. At 5:47 a.m., Thatcher Lowell burst through the office door. His hair was disheveled. His tie hung loose. His face carried the kind of panic that only came from knowing something had gone terribly wrong. Graham, he said breathless, what the hell are you doing here? Graham stood beside the desk, arms crossed. I could ask you the same thing. Thatcher's eyes darted to Mara, who sat calmly at the terminal, hands folded in her lap. Why is a janitor at my computer? His voice carried too much venom, too much defensiveness. Graham stepped forward, positioning himself between Thatcher and Mara. She found something. Found what? Thatcher laughed, but it sounded hollow. Graham, this is a breach of protocol. She has no clearance to access financial systems. We need to. She found the embezzlement scheme, Graham said flatly. Thatcher went still. The one hidden in our billing automation, Graham continued. The one using my credentials. The one designed to destroy me during the audit. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Mara's fingers moved across the keyboard. Don't touch that. Thatcher lunged forward. Graham caught his arm. Let her work. The screen filled with data. Transaction logs. Device signatures. Deployment records. Offshore account numbers. And at the center of it all, Thatcher's digital fingerprints. You planted the code 6 weeks ago, Mara said, her voice calm and precise. You used the CEO's credentials to make it look like he authorized the transactions. You routed the money through shell accounts in 3 different countries, and you timed the whole thing to explode during the audit. Thatcher's face went white. That's not. Every transaction is time-stamped, Mara continued. Every login is traced. Every device is registered. You were careful, but you weren't invisible. She pressed a final key. A new window opened. Complete audit trail. Irrefutable evidence. All pointing at Thatcher. Graham's stomach churned. He had trusted this man. Promoted him. Confided in him. Why? Graham's voice cracked. Thatcher's expression shifted. The panic faded, replaced by something colder. You have everything, he said bitterly. The name, the fortune, the legacy, and you act like it's a burden, like you're too good for the rest of us. So you try to destroy it? I tried to take what I earned. Thatcher's voice rose. I built this financial system. I kept this hospital running while you locked yourself in your glass tower playing monk. I deserve a piece of it. You deserved a prison sentence, Graham said coldly. By 6:30, the board assembled in the emergency conference room. Graham presented the evidence. Mara walked them through the technical details, her voice steady despite the dozen powerful people staring at her. By 7:15, the hospital's legal team had contacted federal authorities. By 8 o'clock, 2 men in dark suits escorted Thatcher Lowell out in handcuffs. The entire hospital watched. Nurses whispered. Doctors stared. And somewhere in the back of the crowd, a janitor stood quietly, wondering if she had just saved a hospital or destroyed her own life. Graham found her in the chapel. She sat in the last pew, hands folded, staring at the stained glass window above the altar. He sat down beside her. For a long time, neither of them spoke. "They're talking about me," Mara said finally. "I can hear in hallways. The janitor who brought down the CFO. The girl who thinks she's smarter than everyone else. They're wrong." "Are they?" She turned to face him. "I'm nobody, Mr. Ellison. I clean floors. I empty trash. I don't belong in boardrooms. You saved this hospital. I did my job." "No." Graham's voice hardened. "You did more than your job. You saw something everyone else missed. You had the courage to investigate. You had the intelligence to prove it. You had the integrity to report it, even though it could have cost you everything." Mara looked away. "I don't want to be a story. I don't want people staring at me. I just want to go back to being invisible. You were never invisible." The words came out before Graham could stop them. Mara's breath caught. "Not to me," he added quietly. "Never to me?" Silence stretched between them. Graham's heart hammered. 5 years of celibacy. 5 years of discipline. 5 years of praying away every carnal thought. All of it crumbled in the presence of this woman. "I need to offer you something," he said. Mara tensed. "You don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do." Graham turned to face her fully. "Mara, you have a gift, a mind that sees patterns no one else can see. You're wasting it on a mop and a cart. I'm grateful for the job. I know, but you deserve more." He took a breath. "I want you to work with me in the finance department as an analyst with proper training, proper pay, proper recognition." Mara's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Completely. Mr. Ellison, people will think, they'll say I made a smart decision," Graham interrupted. "They'll say I recognize talent. They'll say I gave someone a chance. They'll say you're sleeping with the janitor." The words hung in the air. Graham's pulse roared in his ears. "Would that bother you?" he asked quietly. Mara's cheeks flushed. I didn't mean, because it wouldn't be true." Graham held her gaze. "Not yet, anyway." Her breath hitched. "I've spent 5 years," Graham continued, "trying to become someone I'm not. Someone above temptation, above desire, above human connection. I thought discipline made me strong." He paused. "I was wrong." Mara stared at him, her eyes wide and uncertain. "You terrify me," Graham admitted. "From the first moment I saw you in that staff meeting, I've been terrified. Because you make me feel things I swore I would never feel again. You make me want things I promised myself I didn't need. Mr. Ellison." "Graham," he corrected gently. "My name is Graham." She swallowed hard. "Graham." The sound of his name in her voice nearly undid him. "I'm not asking you to be with me," he said. "I'm not asking for anything except a chance to know you, to work beside you, to see where this, whatever this is, could go." Mara's hands trembled. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I. What if I fail?" "You won't." "What if people hate me for it?" "Then they're fools." She laughed, soft, broken, beautiful. "I'd go any length," Graham said quietly, "to never lose you again." Mara reached out slowly, hesitantly. Her fingers touched the collar of his shirt. It had twisted during the chaos of the morning. She straightened it carefully, smoothing the fabric. Her fingertips brushed his throat. Graham inhaled sharply. It was the smallest touch. Innocent, practical, meaningless. Except it wasn't. It felt like the most intimate thing he had experienced in 5 years. Mara pulled her hand back, flustered. Sorry, it was crooked. Graham caught her hand before she could retreat. Don't apologize, he said. Their fingers intertwined. Neither of them moved. In the quiet chapel, surrounded by stained glass and silence, something shifted. Not a confession, not a promise, just a beginning. 2 weeks later, Mara Delaney walked into Graham Ellison's office, wearing a blazer she bought with her first analyst paycheck. She carried a tablet instead of a mop. She wore a real staff badge instead of janitor's polo. And when Graham looked up from his desk and smiled, the first real smile she had ever seen on his face, she smiled back. He stood and gestured to the chair beside his. Not across from him, beside him. Ready, he asked. Ready, she said. They opened financial reports together. 2 minds, 1 purpose. For the first time in 5 years, Graham Ellison felt alive. Not because of power, not because of success, but because of the quiet woman beside him who had awakened something he thought was dead. Something that felt like hope. Something that felt like home. Something that felt against all logic and discipline. And 5 years of celibacy. Like love. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more full cinematic romance stories. Your comments and support keep these stories coming. I'll see you in the next one.